Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Chaos. That's what we have in this administration. Now, I received a call from a longtime listener who said to me, John, you seem to be hung up on the dysfunctionality of Donald Trump. In fact, it was suggested to me that I suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. This is not a syndrome. This is a fact. There is something seriously wrong in Washington. And let me enumerate what those issues are. First, let's talk directly about tariffs and the fact that Donald Trump is now having to back down in his confrontation with China. It is confusing to the markets. And the one thing I'm learning is that whenever Donald Trump speaks, there's a market reaction. And when the Secretary of the Treasury tries to clarify, there is more confusion. This morning, the Secretary of the Treasury was blasting the IMF and the World Bank. And Donald Trump seems to have a problem. And that problem seems now to permeate not only American economics, but also world economics. Never have I seen a situation where a president of the United States, by a simple statement or reaction, has such an impact on the world market. And part of the problem is the world views Donald Trump as being unstable, and he is unstable. His economic policies are certainly proving that instability. And so that is one area. The second area that hit me very hard was the question of now giving an incentive to people to have larger families in the United States. A working proposal being discussed by the Trump administration, which frankly, I find absolutely unbelievable. There are so many issues to be confronted, and now he's talking about the decline in the American population. There is something in my judgment seriously wrong and dysfunctional with this administration. The war on universities. I am someone who grew up around the free speech movement in Berkeley. I knew Mario Savio. I knew Johnny Rothschild. I knew the people who led the free speech movement. The whole idea was that freedom of expression on a college campus was critical. And now what we find is a president of the United States who seems to feel that he can blackmail and bully people into silence. There is something seriously wrong, and it needs to be addressed. It needs to be confronted. And when the smokescreen of anti-Semitism is raised by Donald Trump, I am absolutely horrified. This is not a war against Jew hatred. This is a war against academia, which, frankly, and with good reason, opposes much of Trump's policy directives. There is another issue that needs to be understood very clearly as we confront all of these issues. They continue to grow by leaps and bounds. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now suggesting that the virus which caused the shutdown of this country, that virus, the vaccine for that virus should not be given to children. I can only tell you that my horror at what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is doing at Health and Human Services is real and profound. We now have a situation where in our own daily perusal of the news, there is one story after another which creates tremendous discomfort. Let us be frank and candid. If this were a Democrat in the White House, and this kind of confusion and chaos were taking place, believe me, there would be Republicans up in arms. But it turns out the Republican Party has no backbone. It has no ability to respond to what Donald Trump is doing. This, by the way, is not only a situation with domestic policy, it is with foreign policy as well. Can you imagine the United States threatening now to turn its back on Ukraine? Can you imagine the President of the United States condoning aggression which is precisely what is happening with Russia. And now we are told that Vladimir Putin has presented a gift to Donald Trump. I took a picture at the painting. I did. And I thought to myself, it's nuts. The whole thing is nuts. So, what do you do when the whole thing is nuts and you cannot get a real forum going of people standing up and saying it's nuts? I am reminded of the story of the little boy who was the only one who noticed the emperor had no clothes. You remember that story? That's where we are right now. And the question really is, when will we as a nation stand up and just say no? These are serious times with serious issues, and they need to be addressed. And the Democratic Party and outspoken Republicans, few though they may be, need to come together and make the case that what Donald Trump is doing is wreaking havoc on the American system. I must say that this morning I heard the story about ICE trying to entrap an American citizen for the purpose of deportation. When I heard that, I thought to myself, well, the wheels have gone off the car. Everything seems to be in a state of confusion. And it is because of an administration driven by, well, fantasy and nonsensical concepts and a continuing danger. I want to ask your indulgence. I almost feel like I should ask your forgiveness. I am a political analyst. I've been in politics for many years. Never have I seen such blatant, unreasonable, unconscionable action by an administration. And this is not Trump derangement syndrome. It is John Rothman speaking to you from the heart about a situation which I think is growing. We will address this more in days ahead because every day there is something else. You and I know it, and that's the tragedy. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And of course, you can interact with me on Facebook, LinkedIn. You can call me directly, and of course, many of you email me, and I try to respond. Let me also say to Gogo Zoger, thank you, Gogo. You always do such a great job, and we'll be back tomorrow with more of what's going on right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving that review on Apple Podcasts, sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And of course, I'll see you tomorrow right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman.